Hi, if you're stressed, you know you're stressed, but what you might not realize is that the stress is literally rewiring your brain. If you've been feeling more forgetful, emotionally reactive, or easily distracted, or like your thoughts are racing but your focus is shot, this video is going to help you understand why and more importantly, what you can do about it. Hi, my name is Lisa Ann de Garcia, and I help people optimize their brain health so they can feel calm, focused, and productive. And if that sounds like something that you want more of in your life, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell so you don't miss any of the tools and education that I am sharing each week. Today we are talking about how chronic stress hijacks your brain and how to start getting it back. When you experience a stressor, whether it's physical, emotional, financial, or relational, your body activates the HPA axis. This is the communication network between your brain, specifically the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, and your adrenals. And it's designed to mobilize energy and help you respond to a threat. But the problem is that your body can't tell the difference between whether you're running from a tiger or scrolling through stressful news on the phone while trying to meet a deadline. So it stays on high alert, flooding the system with cortisol and adrenaline, and your brain starts adapting to that stress as the new normal. And nowadays our bodies are almost in this constant state of stress. And then if we're not stressed, our body's like stuck in that state. And one of the first areas affected is the prefrontal cortex, which is right up here. It's the part of the brain responsible for executive functions such as decision making, problem solving, and planning and self-regulation. Chronic stress reduces activity in this area and shrinks gray matter over time, which can leave you feeling scattered, impulsive, or like you're constantly behind. And at the same time, stress activates the amygdala. It's your brain's fear and survival center. It's this really tiny little structure in your brain. And under constant stress, the amygdala becomes hyper-reactive. This means that you're more likely to interpret neutral situations as threatening. You become more emotionally reactive, and it's harder to calm down once you're triggered. So in a stressed brain, your thinking center is going to be offline while your survival center is going to be kind of running the show. And that's why you can feel all amped up but mentally paralyzed at the same time. Another system that takes a hit is your hippocampus. It plays a key role in memory and learning. Chronic cortisol exposure actually shrinks the hippocampus, which is why many people under prolonged stress struggle with word recall, short-term memory, and learning new information. And another thing to note about the hippocampus for us aging women is that there are a lot of estrogen receptors in the hippocampus, and as we go into menopause and our estrogen lowers, then that is also going to be affecting our memory and our recall. So what can we do to get our brain back online? So first we want to start by resetting the HPA axis. Remember, HPA stands for hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals. Your nervous system is always scanning your environment for clues of safety or danger, and you can shift this by sending it intentional signals of safety. So one of the simplest ways is coherent breathing, where you inhale for 5 seconds, you exhale for 5 seconds, and just doing that for 2 to 3 minutes. You're trying to teach your body that it's safe. You're telling your body, okay, we are safe. It activates the vagus nerve, and it calms the amygdala and helps bring that prefrontal cortex back online. Another way to support the brain under stress is to regulate your blood sugar. So when your blood sugar crashes, your brain perceives it as a threat, and that activates the stress response even further. So you should eat within an hour of waking up, don't skip meals, focus on protein and healthy fats and fiber to keep your glucose steady and your brain calmer if this is an issue for you. All right, another thing, hold on just a second. I want to see if no, I don't. Okay, so another thing, I actually have 2 other suggestions. So children, we know, when they have tantrums, their amygdala is also like kind of always on fire and alert. So one suggestion that we can do for them that really works is identify something ahead of time that a smell that they like. A popular researched smell is strawberry. So you can buy a strawberry chapstick, or because you probably really can't buy strawberry essential oil. So strawberry chapstick has a strawberry smell to it. Otherwise, maybe there's another essential oil that they really like that smells like something or that's comforting. And in the middle of a tantrum, you present the smell, and the brain can't process a smell and a tantrum at the same time. So if they're smelling, then it's going to help switch that amygdala off. And for us adults or even children, and this isn't necessarily, let's say, in a tantrum, but when your amygdala is regulated, the way to down-regulate the amygdala is to up-regulate the frontal lobe. So what we know is that the higher that the amygdala is going off, the lower the frontal lobe, and vice versa. So if we can try to get this frontal lobe going regulated, we are going to naturally down-regulate that amygdala. And the way to do that is through things like eye tracking. So you can simply, if this is for another person, you can have them eye track your finger or pencil or something to track with their eyes. You can do this yourself and just be moving your eyes back and forth, up and down. It can be in different directions, just back and forth or up and down or diagonal or in a circle or whatever. But eye tracking helps bring that frontal lobe, because it's moving eyes on purpose. There's different parts of your brain used for eye movement, and when we're doing volitional eye movement, which is moving eyes on purpose, part of that is through the frontal lobe. Also, anything that uses the frontal lobe, that's because the frontal lobe is focus. So anytime you're trying to focus on something, you're going to downregulate that amygdala. That's why you can like just stare at something on a wall, really stare at a picture or something and look at it really intensely, and that will help bring the amygdala down. But anything that is using those frontal lobe skills. So those are just two examples of what you can do in order to downregulate the amygdala and upregulate that frontal lobe. And so let's talk about sensory gating. When the brain is in fight or flight mode, it doesn't filter sensory information well, and that's why stress can make you more sensitive to sounds, light, or even social interactions. That is, if you've ever heard of the moral reflex, so if you're a parent and you found me because you're looking about, with children, you might have learned about primitive reflexes. Primitive reflexes they're a brainstem response, and whenever we are in fear or whenever our frontal lobe is shut off, the frontal lobe is our reasoning part of the brain, and the brainstem is our reactionary part of the brain. It's where our reflexive actions are. Well, some things that are reflexive so the moral reflex is a reflex. But really, if you really think about what's the moral reflex? The moral reflex it's like in the baby, that startle response. Okay, so it's a startle response, or it's basically triggered by sensitivities. Well, when the nervous system is really calm, we can tolerate more of that sensory stimulation. And so when somebody is experiencing the moral reflex like all the time, they're just stuck in that, basically they're stuck in fight or flight and freeze. So fight or flight is more that moro, freeze is the fear paralysis, but they're all like interrelated because they're all parts of the nervous system and the vagus nerve. So one thing that we recommend is you can transition ritual or a transitional ritual between work and home, or between stimulation and rest, like a walk, stretching, a shower, even just sitting outside for 10 minutes. I mean, do you ever notice like how taking a shower just makes you feel really good? At the running water, it has a lot to do with like the energetic or the electrical impulses or whatever. And also, if you're EMF sensitive and you're in front of your computer too much, a shower actually helps with EMF type symptoms. So also sleep, a stressed brain doesn't shut off very easily, but without that deep restorative sleep, all the brain systems I just mentioned have no time to repair, and you don't need to overhaul your bedtime routine all at once. Over time, things hopefully you can change, but just start by dimming your lights, making sure you're in a dark room, you can dim your lights an hour before bed, avoid screens for the last 30 minutes, and going to bed around the same time each night consistently helps regulate your circadian rhythm and supports melatonin production, which your brain desperately needs to heal from stress. Melatonin is your brain's best detoxifier. It's not just something that helps you go to sleep. Your body uses glutathione and melatonin to detoxify, and melatonin is more of a brain detoxifier. It is really important. Sleep is very critical. One of the things I want to say, we talk about our screens. So right now I'm sitting in front of my screen, and I have a newer laptop, newer meaning it's like less than 6 months old, and I was just checking to see if most of my devices, I have like something I put over it, like a filter to kind of filter out some of the blue light. The blue light is very detrimental to your pineal gland, and it affects the production of melatonin. Blue light is most active like during the day outside, like in the natural sunlight, but early in the morning and later in the evening, we have more of those red and orangey glows. If you sit by the fire, those old oil lamps, they're kind of more orangey. And that really is mirroring your natural cycle. So when you are on the computer late at night, you're really messing up with your whole circadian rhythm and you might have trouble going to sleep. So doing things like, there are apps, it's on my other computer, there was a program, I think it's called Flickr. You can look up, there's programs that can automatically dim your computer, so kind of to cut out some of that blue light. You can get a filter, you can get, like, these are just some cheapo blue light blocking glasses. I'm just not wearing them right now because these are a little bit cuter, but usually I'm wearing those if I'm not like creating a video. And also something to note, in your house, you need to be using incandescent light bulbs. I know there was a period of time where they were like illegal, but we stockpiled when we knew that was going to happen. But I think they're, pretty available again. You can buy them on Amazon, but use incandescent bulbs. Fluorescent bulbs, if you get fluorescent, there's like a full spectrum bulb. There's some kind, I think you get a full spectrum bulb. Otherwise, get incandescent. LEDs are the worst. Well, fluorescent and LEDs. And if you've been noticing driving around how many more cars have LEDs, and it really messes with your brain. And in fact, some of the places where they had like the LED street lights, because of the spacing of it, and when you're driving down like the freeway, it creates a flicker effect, and it induces seizures. They're really bad lights. You need it. I'm going to do a whole nother video one day about light and LEDs and fluorescence, and I'll do a whole thing on it. But I just want to let you know that it's not good for your sleep or your circadian rhythm to be exposed to those lights. It may cause migraines, and cause seizures, and cause a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of invisible aspects to it. There's like some humming that some people can perceive. There's some flickering some people can perceive. If you put like a special camera over it, you can see the flickering, and your brain can perceive it even if you can't visibly see it. All right, so bottom line, your brain isn't broken, right? It's adapting, but those adaptations aren't, meant to be permanent. So with the right inputs, your brain is incredibly responsive and resilient. So if you've been feeling unfocused, reactive, forgetful, mentally drained, it's not just stress, it's your brain operating in survival mode. And now you know what it is trying to tell you and a couple things of what you can do about it. All right, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. I could really use it. And hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you're ready to get real insight into your stress response and what your brain needs to feel like you again, check the link in the description to book a free call with me. And you don't have to live in fight or flight, and your brain, doesn't want to stay there. So let's see what we can do to get you out of it. All right, until next week, have a wonderful time.